Hi, welcome everybody to a brand new episode and tutorial for Calman Ultimate. Today we have a very special tutorial for you. It's what we call the Calman LG Ultimate Workflow. Why is it the LG Ultimate Workflow? Well, we had a lot of feedback from broadcasters, professional movie studios, film studios, and post-production facilities that said, wouldn't it be nice if we would have one workflow for LG OLED TVs, or generally those 4K UHD TVs, that can be calibrated just in one go, instead of having a lot of different interactions between the different layouts and between the different elements of calibration. Wouldn't it be something that you could do that makes the whole thing run in one go? And so while the calibration is running, everybody who's working in the studio or everybody who's working in the facility can do things at the side and then come back when the calibration is actually finally performed. So we heard you and we said that sounds pretty awesome, let's do this. And so we came up with what we call the LG Ultimate Workflow. Another reason why it's called the Ultimate Workflow is it's a workflow that's only being used and utilized in Calman Ultimate, because Ultimate is our ultimate tool, as the name suggests, and it has a lot of different special workflows. And so we decided to put that also into our premium tier of our professional licenses. So without any further ado, let's have a look, and I want to show you how cool it is and how easy it works. So first of all, we want to start our workflow, and for that we go to our Open Workflow template. You see there are a lot of different workflows available, and what you need to do is you pick the display specific workflow, and you see now there's a new one below AutoCal LG. There's one, it's called AutoCal LG Ultimate. That's the one that we're going to pick. And while it is loading, I'll tell you a little bit about the setup here. So what we're going to do today is we're using our C6 colorimeter. As you already know, probably from all the several other tutorials. It's a 5000 nit device, and it's actually optimized to also be very precise in the dark reading. So it's not just a simple copy of something out there. It's really something that we have optimized for really good precision readings, and which we also manage through Calman with all the different display profiles that we have added through Calman. So specifically for OLED screens and wide color gamut displays. The other thing that we're using is our Portrait G1 pattern generator. So this one, as you already know it, and if you don't know it, there's a tutorial for it, check it out, is a very little generator that has everything you need. So it also supports Dolby Vision, as we will see in a minute for this workflow, very important. It goes up to 4K resolution, and it really is everything you need for, or as a companion hardware product with Calman. So this is the setup we have here. We're running everything through a local network. So the laptop is in the same network as the generator, and it's also connected through Ethernet cable to our TV. So TV, generator, and notebook are all in a local network, so to talk to each other. That said, you see we have already the workflow in front of us. Let's get started. You see you can now actually select a specific TV from a specific year as an example. This is how we started to make it much more easy for the user, because a lot of times it's like, is that user really used to calibration? Do those people that really know how all those different calibration elements work? And the answer is most likely no. A lot of people who probably have or come in touch with calibration, they really do it the first time. And we have learned a lot from what we have done in the retail space to actually make calibration as easy as possible. And so this is a result that we designed for professionals that also are on the job. And as you probably can imagine, if you are an artist or you work with artists, you know calibration is probably not the number one thing they want to do every day in their daily jobs. So they want to be creative, they want to work, and they want to have a peace of mind that the color of their monitor they're looking at is correct. And so whoever does the calibration doesn't really want to bother too much with it. So what we have done here is like, you first click that you want to have a full automation. So this is why it's already checked. So after we start the workflow, most of it doesn't need any human interaction anymore. And all you need to do is tell Calman what kind of LG display you want to calibrate. Now in this case, I have a C3, which is from 2023, an LG C3. And so what I do is I pick the year 2023. I also pick the display technology. Now in this case, it's an OLED TV. And then you can select the model. And what we do is in the back end, we already just provide a selection of models that are at that time the current state-of-the-art technology that was offered by LG. So in other words, the ones that you're finding are all 2023 models, and these were all OLED models. So in this case, I'm going to pick the C3 because that's what it is. And you see, as soon as I've picked all those three elements here, a little button opens up and it says next, and we click on this to proceed with our workflow. The next layout here is our hardware connect page. So we need to connect to the generator, and we also need to connect to the meter. So both need to be connected to Calman. And what you see is I click to find meter, and I say search, and now Calman is looking for any meter that's connected. So in other words, you don't necessarily have to use our C6 HDR 5000. You also could use whatever you want to use, or whatever your CTO in your facility says you should use, or whatever your consultants say what you should use, your calibrators. But generally, in this case, we're using the C6, and you see the meter profile is automatically loaded. So it's already picked LG OLED as the meter profile. So that gives you the highest precision you want to have with a colorimeter. Then we also have to connect to the source. And you see here on the screensaver, you see the IP address that's actually provided to this little fellow here. So it is 192.168.0.103. And this is what I want to put in here. So I pick my brand. In this case, I would say the Portrait Displays is the brand. And the model we are using is the G1, so I pick the G1. And you see I have previously connected to it, so Calman remembered what I was using. Otherwise, you would just enter the IP address here in this field. But in this case, we're picking our little generator here, and we say connect. You see now the generator is connected to Calman. And this is our alignment pattern. That's how we call it. The alignment pattern allows you to put the meter in the center of the screen. There's this little target you can see in the center. So you see it's right in the center and it's right aligned as it's supposed to be. And you see we're already connected, so we can proceed to the next step. Now comes one of my favorite parts. You see there is this pre-calibration setup. If you want to know what your display is doing, let's assume you put it out of the box, you start using it the first time, you want to know how good all those different picture modes are out of the box, this is where you would want to use that pre-calibration setup. If you already know what you're doing, if you already know your display, and if you already know what you want to calibrate it to, you can skip actually this part. For the sake of this tutorial, we're only using one so that we actually save some time, but generally that's what you would want to do. So you would want to pick the picture mode that you want to measure, and then you would actually then pick that one for the pre-calibration that shows up in the report in the end. It just gives you an idea what the TV state actually is when you get it outside of the box. It has nothing to do with the calibration we're going to apply after the pre-calibration reading. So for that reason, let's only do the SDR thing. So I'm going to disable the pre-cal capture for HDR and also going to disable the pre-cal capture for Dolby Vision. By the way, how do we measure Dolby Vision? Well, this little fellow here, the generator, is sending out a flag so that the TV switches into Dolby Vision mode. That's actually pretty cool. So since I have disabled this, Calman is not even bothering and not even looking for something with Dolby Vision. We only will have a little pre-calibration measurement. And of course, I want to pick the right mode. In my case, I say, okay, I want to see what the picture mode here is. For example, the standard mode. What is this? So I have to select that mode. So I really measure that mode in pre-calibration to know what's going on. And you also see that we have set everything to an ideal preset, so the pattern delay for SDR is 1.5 seconds. The SDR targets are D65 white point, 709 color gamut, which is the BT709 HD color gamut. And the gamma formula here is a power function, is a gamma of 2.4, which is basically the suggested display gamma. Now, why do we do this? Well, our engineering team is working with all those displays and we have a good idea what are the best presets. So again, you don't have to bother, you don't have to do too many testing. It's really making your life easier. So an important part of LG TVs and calibration with HDR is that the first time an HDR signal enters the LG TV, they have a deep color message popping up on the screen. And so if you do not actually clear this, you cannot proceed with the calibration. So what we have done here is that we have this deep color message enforcing button that is going to start the messaging. And you see now in this case, I can say to provide an optimized quality, and so yeah, please actually connect external value, say okay. And so we cleared that message. And you see, it also tells me here, press OK on the TV. We did this to clear the message. And now I actually can proceed. So when I have picked this, I will start and click Start Precal. Now, this is a thing that will run completely automatically. So while this is doing, let me explain a little bit what you see here. So what we see is that Calman is starting and launching its calibration wizard. In this layout, we're not calibrating yet. We're just sending a couple of patches, test patterns, to see what the display's actually state is. So it starts with the grayscale. As you can see now, it's laying out all those different grayscale patches. And then after that is done, it's also calculating the gamma curve, the display gamma for us. And after that, it will actually measure the color points in the 709 color gamut. So we're using the reference targets for 709, and we're comparing it with what the display actually is doing. Normally, you want to be in a color error of a delta E scale of 2. That's the max you normally would want to have. In a reference environment, it goes even down to 0.5 or something. So as you can see already here, without speeding it up, we're kind of way through the roof with a lot of things because that's a typical standard mode of a TV. I just picked it just to show you. Apparently LG has a cinema mode, which is much closer and much better, but this is just to give you an idea. So you see that was actually quite easy and it automatically went on to the next page. Now in this case, what we're doing is we're starting to set up the real calibration. So you see the layout here, it says it's set up the calibration. First, it tells me to disable the energy saving before we really start with this. That's a very important thing. So what I'm going to do here is I go back to my menu. And as you can see, most likely, because I normally know what's going on, I put it already in cinema. That means most of the stuff will be disabled. But to make sure we're really on the same page, we go to General Settings. And then somewhere down here, there must be something like energy saving, you see, and we want to switch that off. That's very important because otherwise you have those kind of weird dimming going on and power consumption savings going on, and that is going to screw up your gamma curve and your display gamma. That's why we're going to do this. We have done this. While we are already in the menu, what we also should do is look up the network and have a look if the TV has an IP address. And as you can see, we have one. It's 192.168.0.101. That is the IP address I need to enter here when I click now Find Display. So let me do this. I go to Find Display. Again, I pick my model, LG. It's already picked automatically. But here you see the IP field. That's where I need to enter exactly that IP address. So I will do 192.168.0.101. Why are we doing this? Because Calman now is not just loading the patches automatically and sending commands to the generator or taking the readings automatically from the meter. It will also send the lookup table. After we have profiled the display, it will send automatically all the correction data back into the TV. So we're basically communicating with the TV and loading all the data back into the TV after we created the 1D LUT and the 1D LUT and matrix, color matrix. Whatever we do based in the back end, it's all pushed on the TV. That's why we need to talk to the TV. So the very first time you want to connect to the TV, LG also has put in a security measure. It's popping up with a PIN number so that only people who are really specifically are allowed to talk to the TV and to connect to the TV can connect to the TV being in the same room. So in this case, I will say connect, and you will see now a PIN number popping up on the screen. You see this is 60 39 17 75. We're going to enter this here in our PIN field, 60391775, and then we say OK. And this is when you see the TV starts now, calibration started. When we're correctly connected, you will also see that in the upper right hand corner, the yellow direct display control tab is turning green, which shows us that we are properly connected to the LG TV. And we're getting to our setup calibration layout, where we can then now define what the real calibrations should be per picture mode. So what do we see here? Well, that's the magical part. I mean, I was already excited about the fact that you have everything you can pick in the beginning for an automated pre-calibration readings. But here, that's the real deal. What you see here is that you can define every single parameter you want to calibrate all the different picture modes to. So you see, we can calibrate the cinema mode, which is for SDR content. We have an HDR cinema mode, which is for HDR content. That is basically HDR10, which means it's a PQ EOTF based on ST2084. It is Rec 2020 or BT 2020 color gamut. And the 3D LUT is a matrix LUT we're building with a 1D LUT for grayscale, as an example. So you can see everything that we would recommend. It doesn't mean that that is what you want to do. That's also a very important part. Maybe you have a different reason why you use a different white point. Maybe you have a reason why you want to have a different 1D LUT with different point-based calibrations. So you can modify almost everything in this layout. The reason why we give you all those presets is because we think this is what works best with a specific type of display. So that C3 from 2023 works best during auto calibration with those parameters. That is all what it says. You can change it whenever you want. And also we have a knowledge base where you can look up much more background information about why you want to do those things. Or if you have more questions, you can ping our tech support and ask questions. We're happy to help out. So in this case, we will run the whole thing. And that's exactly where we were coming up with LG Ultimate Workflow, because as soon as we have this started, you can do whatever you want in the meantime. And so that means this runs based on the setup for a couple of hours, because we want to get the most precise 1D LUT, or also the matrix LUT, everything for color and grayscale. And we want to make sure that the results are as good as they can be. So we let the calibration run, speed this whole thing up for you in this video, and see you after that to go through the calibration reports. Excellent. We have our calibration completed. And as you can see here now, all 4 picture modes that we calibrated are successfully calibrated. So there's cinema calibration, the grayscale and the 3D LUT, HDR cinema calibration, filmmaker mode calibration, and the Dolby Cinema Home calibration. Now, you can either view the results, so let's have a look what the cinema calibration looks like. So you can see that this is the post-calibration measurement, and it shows you that everything looks beautiful. We have an average delta of 0.3 on the delta E scale, which is just impressive, and a max delta E of 0.6 just for, let's say, the SDR cinema mode, which is quite impressive. When we look at the other modes, HDR cinema mode, you see pretty much the same, 0.5 average and a max of delta 1. You see it's tracking the PQ curve beautifully. It's exactly what it's supposed to be, and also the color gamut is at a 0.7 max and an average delta E of 0.5. We have a look at our filmmaker mode, HDR mode. Same thing, average of 0.4, max 1.2, and color gamut is 0.4 average and max 0.6. Again, tracking beautifully the PQ curve, exactly as we like it and exactly as it's supposed to look like. And then finally, Dolby Vision. Let's have a look at that. Equally beautiful. So you see average error is 0.4, max is 1 on the delta E scale, and the color gamut is 0.7, and the max is 1.1. So in other words, this display is almost as good looking as a reference display. Well, at least from the color and grayscale point of view. So if you want to use a display like this, for example, as a client monitor or for the director as a viewing display, it is absolutely beautiful and it can be very well calibrated. So what you now can do is, of course, you can save the entire session. Let's do this real quick. And while we save the session, we also can create a PDF a PDF file that you might want to print. You can put it in the different rooms where your displays are located probably, or hang it on the wall. So people who are working there, the creatives, see when those displays were calibrated the last time, to just create the peace of mind that your gear is in top shape. As we can see here now, we can change or edit the name of the calibration. So we have always the date of the calibration. Now in this case, I would call it probably LGC3. Ultimate calibration. And then we say, yes, please save the edits and give me the report. Oh, let's have a look at this report. That looks impressive. So here's our pre-calibration reading, by the way. You see, remember, at the beginning of our session, we did this only for the SDR standard mode. You can see how all those deltas are going through the roof, and you get a very good idea of how the display might look, how picture modes might look out of the box. Now again, Calman is in this case a validation tool as well. And of course, LG picture modes like the cinema mode are very close already to the standards, but a standard mode is a typical shop mode, for example. That's why it looks like this. But it gives you also an idea that it works the way it's supposed to work. The other parts here you see is the cinema mode that was calibrated. Looks just beautiful. The HDR cinema mode, absolutely beautiful. The HDR filmmaker mode, you see every single aspect, every single area is named correctly based on what the calibration is all about. And then finally, the Dolby Vision Cinema Home calibration. And then at the end, there's also some space to take additional notes if you really want to. But the idea is giving you a calibration suite that is more like a click of a button and the whole thing is running. So the report is saved as a PDF. If we want to call it a day, we can actually disconnect from the display and we are set. Or if you really want to, you can also do some additional validation. For example, we have added a color checker chart where you can run different patches and see how the color reproduction is after all those calibrations. We also have color saturation sweeps for the color gamut, and you can see and check how the color looks like. If you're done with this, the layout is going to get you back to the start page, and then you can start a new calibration all over if you want. That's it, folks. We hope that it was an enjoyable and also informative tutorial. If you have questions, just get in touch with us or with our customer service. Let us know how you think and what you think about the video in the comments section, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.